There's a little bit more, the end to that story I was telling you. Well, story or I don't know. Buddha, when he was just an ordinary being, he got tired of dukkha. He got annoyed by pride, all that. And then he saw Dipamkara, someone who actually followed enlightened path. When the moment he saw, this is, I think, quite beautiful, I thought, to tell you. Moment he saw, what he did is he raised one of his leg. He raised his leg for, the Indians and followed by the Tibetans. Many times there is poetic license, lot of poetic license. So I don't know, depending on, for me, I am a sucker to all this. So I believe in this wholeheartedly. But for many of you, maybe you can be skeptical. But anyway, the story is that moment he saw Dipamkara, he was so moved by someone who has managed to, relinquish the fire of pride, and someone who can sort of have this couldn't care less attitude towards the dukkha, and someone who has so much compassion and someone who's so generous. He was so moved that he raised his one leg as a gesture of appreciation for 7 days and nights. And then he recited this words. There's a word, I think we should try to download that later. Steve, can you help? Can you remind me? Or whoever? There's a word like, oh, I've never seen such a being like you, neither in heaven nor in the, that kind of verses. But to me, what it tells us is not really a ritual. I mean, it is a ritual, yes, but it's a spontaneous action. It's a bit like a tears. Sometimes we meet somebody who is so inspiring, who really is just so inspiring. You have tears in your eyes. It's a bit like that. It's like, and then, to do that, raise your leg 7 days and nights. Well, in some of the Shastras, there's more addition. He even put lamp or something on his head, or he put his hand above his head 7 days and night with one leg standing. And it is because of this amazing appreciation towards someone who, it's a act, it's a spontaneous act of appreciation towards someone who appreciates. It's there, but it's not there. You understand? It's appearing, but it's also emptiness. It's that gesture, and not just that gesture. The gesture was towards someone who actually understood that emptiness and clarity. It created so much merit that it's believed that it is that act, 7 days and night of standing on one leg, gave the result of Ushnisha, the Buddha's tip of his head. It's supposedly the most precious mark of the Buddha. Veneration towards the, of course, broadly speaking, veneration towards the master, but really it is a veneration towards the view. You see somebody who has understood that view, and not only understood intellectually, you see somebody who is dwelling with that view, that attitude. Of course, this is very, very completely on the bodhisattva path. But even in our mundane, very, very mundane level, I think sometimes it can happen to us in our worldly life, in the worldly situation. I have to share this, it suddenly come in my head, so I have to speak this. I have to speak this out. I had nothing, not at all, I'm not talking about a spiritual experience. Well, maybe I am, but anyway, it's nothing at all like the story I just told you. But something very moving happened when I went to Colombia a few months ago, Colombia. I think two guys from a special tribe. I think the name of the tribe is Kir. I think it's, anyway, they live in a very, very special place. Nobody goes there, nobody comes out of that place also. It's really, really, like recently the government sent drone to take photos of this village or whatever, the community. The guys shot arrow and down to, drone. I thought it's such a cool thing to do. This is the way to go, isn't it? Anyway, I have this peace vase project, and somehow somebody managed to send this vase to their community. And I guess they wanted to also connect to whoever is giving this. So they came, two of them, they came to see me. They were like, because they have nothing to do with this sort of modern life or whatever, this kind of way of communicating. They were very special. When they had a stick with something on it, something like a fruit. They have another stick. Constantly they're rubbing this fruit. And then sometimes they put the end of the stick in their mouth and then rub. I think it's some substance, I don't know. I dare not ask. I was really, wow. It's quite special. Because I was looking at their eyes. They don't have like us. Is anybody looking at me? They were very at ease. They don't give a damn about things. they were like so, just, quite special. Really, really special. Not the usual hope and fear, I think, that we go through. I don't know whether they are masters. This I'm not claiming, okay? Nothing to do with that. Just because they come from all different sort of a planet almost. It's just so different. Anyway, I made a mistake. I asked, can I come to your village? Or whatever, the community. They said, one of them said, we need to ask the mother. So I thought, okay. I thought that's like when they go back and there's this mother that they have to ask. They said, we have to ask the mother. I said, okay. Then one of them said, well, in order to ask the mother, we need a room. Then I said, okay, now that's a little bit interesting. So we show many different. I was teaching in the Bogota University, so it's a really nice place. So we showed them some room, really good ones, living room, green room, all that. There's none of them good. Finally, they chose ladies' room. This is good. So they went in there. They said, I can come sometimes if I like. So they went there. I think they stayed at 2-3 hours. We had to ask the audience, ladies, to go to some other. Yeah, they sat there. And I went there several times. They were doing nothing. They're just like rubbing that thing. About 1 or 2 hours later, then they said, yes, our mother said you can come. Because, they said, because we are older brother, they are pointing at them. So we are older brother. You, the younger brother. You are younger brother. Today, we are sort of like including you as a younger brother, so you can come. That's it. So I'm now I have to go there one of these days. I'm a little bit worried what I will do. Who knows what they will ask me to do. I heard some of them, they have schools. The way they raise their kids, very interesting. I don't know, I'm not so sure. Either right after they were born or after a few years. I think it's right after they were born. Actually, they gave birth in a dark cave. And they keep there for years. And as they grow up, the adults tell them, one day you will go out of this cave. And there, outside, there are things called tree. It looks like this. It has leaves, it has vine, it has roots. Then there's things called wind, they explain. Like years. And then one day they go out and they're all ready, because they already know. What a good, I don't know, it's really very interesting, isn't it? So profound in a way, education. Anyway, this is just, I was talking about, because I come from a tradition that really appreciates couldn't care lessness people. People who really, and now the people who don't have that kind of paranoia, people who really couldn't care lessness but no arrogance, a lot of compassion. These people are waning. We don't see these kind of people. And I grew up, loving and appreciating this kind of tradition. So I guess it must be that when I saw those two people, I felt so moved, really, so encouraged. And yeah, I'm a deluded being, A few days later, I heard news that some Colombian soldiers got killed by these tribes because they were entering into their territory. I have to confess, I was happy. I have to confess, because, I'm a deluded being. I thought, they need to be protected. Why not? Why are they doing there? Yeah, they deserve this. So deluded, and so but that's how I was thinking. We human beings, just this morning I was talking to somebody, Are we contributing to the world at all? I don't think so, at all, not even a little bit. We are, what do you call it? Taking so much. Are we, has anyone sort of sprinkled pollen? Pollen? That's what the bees do, right? They throw pollens and then the stuff grows. We don't do this, right? We do not contribute at all to the earth. We take anyway, view meditation or practice. I like the word practice better. And within the context of the practice, I've sort of talked very briefly about the vipassana. As a company to the vipassana, as a stabilizer of the vipassana, as something that will help the vipassana, there's also something called shamatha, which is basically to make your mind malleable, make your mind controllable. And that, there's so many techniques, such as just watching the breath in and out, which I'm sure many of you have heard. I think I'm going to answer questions now, if you have questions.
Hello, Rinpoche. 2 questions on behalf of my friend. First question, my friend met an Indian scholar in Bodh Gaya, and this scholar asked, can your Buddhist explain about Buddha? Is your Buddha passed away or still alive? If Buddha passed away, how can he protect your Buddhist? If Buddha is still alive, why your Buddhists venerate the relics? And please answer us in 1 sentence. So my friend got very mind-boggling. He cannot answer. So he want to ask, if Rinpoche is there, how are you going to respond to this question?
The Indian asked this?
Yes, Indian scholar.
Classic Indians. Classic, yeah. It took me almost 30, 40 years to sort of get used to their tricks. First of all, whoever have asked this question, he has got that. He modified this a little bit. He got that question from the Buddhist sutras. There's 14 classic questions. Actually, there's 14, and one of them is this. Do you have his address, that Indian guy? I have to really, I don't know. Anyway, just say, he's there, but he's also not there. Yes. This is actually not a joke, it's really, that's how it is. Because the Buddhists really don't, I've already explained. Remember the view? No annihilation, no permanence. No going, no departing, not coming. No, like 2,500 years. For Buddhists, 2,500 years ago means now. Also, now means then. Okay.
So about the passed away part?
Yeah. In the history, if you like, he's passed away, and at the same time, Buddha is within me, like that.
Okay.
My mind, the innate nature of my mind, this very moment mind.
The second question is from a young Chinese student, and he said, Rinpoche mentioned hearing, contemplating, and action. But hearing takes times. And now the Chinese young people, they work 996. That means 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 a week. So they're so busy, so tired. When they go back home, they just lie down and watch some, movies. So they only have the cracket, at times, like 5-10 minutes, but cannot have a calm mind to hearing completely. This is not only about Buddhism, but about all doctrines like psychology and other doctrines. So he wants to ask Rinpoche, as the situation in China now for the young people, how could they generate the interesting and also the calm mind to use this cracket time to hearing systematically?
Okay, one, when we talk about the hearing, I think that not just the Chinese, generally Asians, traditional Asian society, we are still stuck with, hearing from page 1 to the last page. You understand? We have that tradition, which has its merit, I have to say, but nowhere in the Buddhist skillful means this is emphasized. I mean, if you have time, you can do it. Hearing is, you can even have a cup of tea, coffee, bar, restaurants, talk about the Dharma. You understand? Talking about the Dharma, conversation about the Dharma, being critical towards the Dharma, criticize the Dharma. You understand? Hearing is basically that. I think many ends up thinking hearing is only qualified as a hearing when it is coming from a master and you sitting there and listen. No, not necessarily. Even the reading book, even few sentences, that should be, and conversations. And I don't know, even movies, there are many movies that can make you think about the reality, think about it can. I forgot the second part of the, how, in this, I think, okay, not just China again, generally, in Asia, there's this old habit of seeing Buddhist. The moment you talk about Buddhist practitioners, you always end up thinking they're this renouncant. I mean, when I say renouncant, monks, nuns, sort of those who need to go through that kind of training. It gets associated with a temple. I was just talking about this recently for instance, 84,000. We have this translation, and in the sutras, there is this where Buddha said, these sutras, if you read, how much merit, so much merit by reading, contemplating, hearing, and not only that, even if you write. So I know the Chinese have this amazing habit of writing the sutras, isn't it?
Yes.
So accumulation of merit through writing the sutras. Well, I really strongly encourage and make the modern Chinese think downloading a sutra is equally a lot of merit. Because the time has changed. You understand? Downloading, putting it as your screen, saver, all that, depending on the motivation, isn't it? So I think we are a little bit stuck with the ancient. So let's say if you want to build a temple, why not, instead of building a temple, why not build a workplace? Have a coffee shop. Maybe a picture of a Buddha, some Buddhist sutras and Buddhist texts, and the whole day drink coffee and tea and talk about life. And as long as the conversation has something to do with the dukkha, anicca, and anatta, even it doesn't have a Buddhist jargon, it's fine.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Dear Rinpoche, being a Chinese-born Australian, have all the right reasons to be here, and I'm here embarrassed, excited, and also have this sudden urge that I have to be here to express what I'm going to say, is that your view, your book, What Makes You Not a Buddhist, is the reason I took refuge and led to my guru, which pulls the rug under my feet at the right time. And I try not to waste everyone's precious time, but I just wanted to thank you. And to say this means a lot, and for that I'm forever indebted to you, and I work in a bank. Thank you.
Rinpoche, I'd also like to express my gratitude for you spending the weekend with us in Sydney. My question is to ask you to say a little bit more about the story you just told, specifically around the delusion you acknowledged when you felt happy about, or not happy about, but that there was something positive about the defense.
It's not really positive, it's just me being completely human being when, because what do you call it? Because my feeling is lopsided, sectarian. I like this, therefore anything that harms this, I don't like.
Right, and that's maybe in the vein of you making the distinction between Maha Karuna and ordinary compassion, right? What would the higher level, the Maha Karuna view of something like that be then?
I will have to say, those Colombian soldiers, they may have been the mothers and the fathers of this tribe in the past life, so on and so forth, on that along the line. That's so difficult when you get driven by a certain lopsided extreme view. It's very difficult. But it's doable. It is doable. Sometimes it happens, and when it happens, it can be very moving. To me, it happens more with some more safe situation. Like, I tried, there used to be American Secretary of State called Donald Rumsfeld. I don't know, maybe you're too young to...
No, I know him.
Yeah. Trying to think that he has been my mother for a long, long time. Many times, very difficult. No, he can't be, you know that. But once I was in Morocco, and I went to bazaar, and there's this donkey with a cart selling, and the donkey, the vendor selling fruits. This donkey, the image of the donkey stayed so long with me. Really long, years. And I always say, has to be my mother. Yeah, so it happens more with the safe stuff like this. I'm sure if the donkey bit me, I would have a different idea. Okay.
Thank you.
Rinpoche, I have a question on Buddha nature and how it relates to the view. So the view is all conditioned phenomena are illusory by nature.
It is a name given to everything what I just said.
Yeah, does that apply to Buddha nature in the sense of, do we look at Buddha nature think it's there, but it's not there?
Yes, very much so. Actually, it's good that you asked, because there was no time to cover that. Yeah, there's so many tathagata, tathata, tathata, tathagata. Buddha, Shakyamuni, he used to call himself. Sometimes he said, I say this, I say that. Sometimes instead of he's saying, I have said this, I have said that, he referred himself as Tathagata said this, Tathagata said that. In the sutras, you will find this, which means one Tatha gatta, the gatta, I think the Sanskrit word gata is very, very rich again. It means both come and go, right? Together. So one who has gone or one who has come, basically one who has seen the truth.
So there's, when people say Buddha nature, they go, maybe it's the real me, but what that really is
Something
also
like that.
illusory
Tathagata
nature.
garbha,
Yeah.
Garbha. Garbha has a connotation of essence, quintessence.
Which is illusory.
Yes, very much so, very much. If it is not illusory, then it will end up becoming like a, again, you can fall into one of the extreme. The extreme, annihilation and permanent. Oh, there's a lot of debate about that, even within the Buddhist scholars. Buddhist scholars tend to, there are many Buddhist scholars, let's say, especially mainly coming from the Gelupa and the Sakya tradition, they will be very careful about teaching you Buddha nature first. They say, well, this will make the students fall into the eternalists. So let's teach them first the Prajnaparamita or the Madhyamika. Once you get quite, savvy with that kind of thinking, then they insert the Buddha nature.
Rinpoche, you mentioned guilt, and so this guilt that's sort of nagging, even if you're watching a movie, and so you can't fully enjoy the movie because you have this sort of nagging feeling, I should be practicing, I should be doing this, even if you're with your boyfriend. Similarly, you're just there, but something in the back of your mind is nagging at you. Could you elaborate a little bit more how this actual guilt nonstop can help us get closer to the truth?
Okay, let me think about this. If you have the guilt of not practicing enough, and then if you have a true belief that you will never practice in this life, then maybe you are not really guilty of not practicing the Dharma. You understand what I'm saying? Because then you are not really understanding anicca. Self-condemnation. Oh, I'm hopeless. I can never practice. That is believing in eternalism or nihilism. It could go other way. Then that is not really a practice. I don't think so. But appreciating, things are anicca, dukkha, and anatta, and I really need to get used to this. That concern itself is a mindfulness. It's also, it can be, it can create urgency. But some amount of, especially for the beginners, some amount of uncomfortable feeling will be there, but that's okay. That doesn't matter. I know we are follower of the Sugata, the blissfully gone being, but Dharma practice is a bad news to dualistic world. And more it become bad news is supposedly better for the Dharma practice. So when the bad news comes, there will be struggle between the old habit and the new habit. I think that's okay. Okay.
Hi, dear Rinpoche, I have one question about the path, we're teaching today. So, say for example, as long as we set up a correct motivation, say set a bodhicitta, we're trying to practice and save all the sentient beings, right? Then, say for example, we take a method, use your head and like banging on walls, and you feel the pain, right? Then you contemplate, say, oh, I'm taking suffering from all sentient beings because I feel pain. Or say, I'm purifying my all downfalls because I'm suffering pain. Or also say, okay, after all this practice, maybe I have some merits, then I'm dedicating all my merits to all sentient beings relief from samsara. So my conclusion, my question is that as long as I set up motivation, does that mean I'm on the right path? Or how can I really achieve to the correct result? Or how can I identify I'm on the right path? That's my question.
It's good. It's good. You can go with that for now. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, like the earlier question, always ready to pull rug out of your feet. You understand? No, this is how it is. At the moment your bodhicitta, may all sentient beings be happy, and all of that is so convoluted and stained by all kinds of dualistic mind, trying to be non-dualistic, all that, yeah, but that's the only way we can do.
Okay.
After a while, you will reach to a stage where you are not frightened by the word all. Do you know why? Because all is one and one is all.
Okay.
That's why. Then the bodhisattva is becoming comfortable.
So basically the path can be really like wide range. There's no
And not
set.
only that, very progressive, right? It peels off lots of skin.
Then eventually, if you get like enlightenment or something, do you still have good or bad emotions in your mind? Or just because you can treat them well or control them well?
It's a bit like I said earlier, in the dream, 5 elephant. That 5 is 5. You understand? But an awakened person knows it's a dream. So it's not bothered by 5 or 4. It's a bit like this.
Okay. Thank you.
Bad and good may still be there, but it will not function as a normal bad and good.
So what's the difference? What's the difference? Like, it's not function as good or bad.
Well, it's a bit like this, how should I say? Well, of course, the easiest to understand this is the non-duality of bad and good, right? But that doesn't mean that they become also one, because it's not like they used to be separate and then they become one, like a light and after the realization. But there's also something called discriminating wisdom, which means you can still talk to people, and when you talk to people, 4 is still 4 and 5 is still 5.
Okay. Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello. I was just wondering, is it not enough to know the view? Why do we need to realize the emptiness? Because if I realize emptiness, I might have a heart attack and die.
No, but understanding the view is the understanding the shunyata, emptiness.
But is it not enough to just know the truth?
That is the truth.
Okay.
Anicca, anatta,
Yeah.
and dukkha is the truth.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Also, please visit Vancouver soon. Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you so much. Can you hear? Oh, yeah. This morning you talked about compassion. I just wanted to ask about compassion fatigue, which is a concept that we now have in the West.
Compassion for?
Fatigue, or being
Oh,
tired of compassion.
Yes.
Yes.
I think I talk about that a little bit, like needing to go to shrink because you have too much. Yes, I think because there's no wisdom. That's why.
So it's compassion without wisdom.
Compassion and the wisdom must come together. That's what I said. The view, having the right view is the compassion. If you don't have that, then you have the fatigue. That's what I just said earlier. Remember, all sentient beings. I am going to enlighten all sentient beings. I'm not going to leave one single sentient being behind. Wow, that's going to take long time. That's going to take forever. Diluted mind. Then you go to the master. This is going to take a long time. Then the master says, no. Yes, you can do it in a moment. Then they teach you no difference between a moment and an eon. Really, it's really like that. Some of you guys, I have told this story, again, another, story. I will tell you, this is really important. You asked a Buddhist, really serious question. Define moment. You know moment? Define moment. This is the Buddhist answer. I like to do this always. I'll demonstrate, okay? Cockatoo, right? Cockatoo is the cockatoo. No, the one you always do. What is it? Kookaburra. Right. A kookaburra picks up this, goes to Mount Uluru, touches Mount Uluru once 100 years, and every 100 years he does this again and again, and it is through this friction, one day Uluru flattened. All that is a one moment for a Buddhist. See, again we are talking about relative of time. This view is really, really important. You need to know this. When there is a view, then the compassion, no fatigue.
Rinpoche, like the example of Saraha, is it, all the cultivation, all the practices, is to lead to the point that, for the realization of the Satori moment that, or get rid of all this, that realize all this are futile?
Yes, it's like, you are a kid and you are watching a play, and in the play there's a demon dance, and you are so scared. You had to almost pee in your pants. Your mother rushed you towards the toilet, and the toilet happened to be at the backstage, this back behind the stage. And then there you saw, actually, the guy is wearing mask, Satori. You go back after peeing and demons, doesn't matter. You enjoy Satori. Yeah. At the moment we are wearing the demon mask of time, space, bad, good, men, women, all this mask we wear. Okay.
Hi Rinpoche, thank
Oh,
you.
talking about Satori, read Basho. Oh, he's so good. Or also Isa Kobayashi. They have a really, I mean, these guys, the Basho, he can really make the world so meaningful just based on a sound of a frog jumping on inside the pond. How beautiful is that? That's what the Satori, people who attend Satori do this kind of thing.
I have one of those big, small questions, so I'm going to try my best to be clear. But during this teaching, I thought of expressions or sayings like happiness is in the waiting room, or it's the journey, not the destination. And in terms of what you were talking about in satisfaction and looking and pursuing for this truth, I wonder if the word contentment is useful in that.
Very much.
And if you could give me that one more. I don't know, there's this insatisfaction of how do I feel content while I'm still seeking for something. Do you know what I mean?
Is this Hannah?
Yeah. Hey.
Oh my goodness.
Nice to see you again.
So, contentment.
Yeah.
Contentment. Not making a big deal out of things. Not get swayed. Not become lopsided. And because of that, even a sound of a frog jumping in the pond is a very big deal. You understand? Wow, it's so good, isn't it? Usually these are the things that we ignore, and this is so much. And I don't know, collapse of market is as futile as a smell of a squirrel's fart. Maybe that. Think about that a little bit, and we can talk more about it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hello?
Okay, we need to somehow end it. So after this, then we will, yeah.
Rinpoche, just a question, because yesterday you said the mind is there and not there. And today you said consciousness is there and not there. And it's like a reflection of the moon in the river. But for there to be a reflection, there has to be a moon. And there has to be a river.
Yes.
So how is that explained?
But moon is also not there, and the reflection, lake is also there and not there.
But then you also said, if you are distracted, then it's you're on a bad eon, but if you're not distracted, you're actually in a good eon. So that means something is being distracted. So if it's truly there and not there, then what is being distracted and why do we care?
Okay, very good. Can you hold on to that? Are you coming tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay. If I didn't answer, if I'm not covering this, can you ask me this again? Because this is quite important. I don't want to just rush through.
Yes, Rinpoche.
Okay.
Rinpoche, you're talking to young people about their lives. Well, I'm quite an old person now. And one of the things that happens as you get older is that your mind stops working in the same way. Is that a good thing? Is dementia, which is the dread of every old person, that they'll lose their mind, is that a good thing? Or can you talk about that in a Buddhist... aging. It's about aging and the changes that happen to our mind.
What to do, you mean, with this?
How do we manage? How do we keep doing what we're doing?
There is a very good answer. Do shamatha.
More shamatha. More shamatha.
Very, very important.
Okay.
Because actually everyone has dementia. Everyone.
Yes.
Everyone. They just think they don't have.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you,
Okay.
Rinpoche.
Rinpoche, thank you for teaching us today. My question is based on what you said about spiritual materialism earlier. I am doing the Nondro, and I guess came from a place where it was spoken about having to do 100,000 prostrations, etc. And as part of the Nondro Ga, you are now basing that on a time frame as opposed to the counting. So I'm doing both, and I find it quite distracting to count, even though I feel like it is an important thing. Can you give some advice on how to...
This is very related to the guilt we are talking about. So many of these are systematic and deliberate design to create this guilt and also make you do it. It's like a toy. It is. But, you know, the point of the Ngondo is to let your mind enter into the Dharma, appreciate the Dharma. You understand? That's so important. It's, as long as that's happening,
so
as long as that's happening, wait. As long as that's happening, you don't have to tell the truth to the instructors. You understand? Okay.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Okay.
I'm getting a bit stuck in logic, I think. I've been really trying to reflect on the opposites being the same thing. So many and one, many is the same as one. I can get because there's aggregates, but it's also one person. I can get big, at the same time it's small because it's big for an ant or it's small for a person. Moisturiser I struggled with, but moisturiser is moisturising for a human, but maybe dry for a fish. But there's something that's not, I'm missing something between there and it's there, but it's not there.
Yeah. You are not really missing. Actually, your habit of distinguishing them, separating them. You understand? Divorcing them is so strong. So you are not really managing to swallow and chew.
Okay.
That's all.
So I just have to keep reflecting on it.
Yes. That's all there is to so-called practice is like this. You know, like in the Tantra, I don't know, like in the Vajrayana, there's something called Guru Yoga. You are first told to visualize the Guru here, mighty, beautiful, shining, blah, 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 all that. But at the end, he dissolves into you, and you and him become inseparable. So stuff like this, there's always, and the refuge is the same. You visualize the refuge objects here, but dissolve. So there's a lot of that. This all comes in the section of anatta. Okay. Is there outreach thing happening now? Okay.
Thank you, Rinpoche. I'd like to introduce Jane from Lotus Outreach, and we're going to have a short slideshow and then a 10-minute question and answer with Rinpoche. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Rinpoche. Thank you so much for getting here, despite the struggles. And thank you for your precious teachings on view, meditation, and action. I think we may shortly be coming to the action part of your teachings. So maybe it's timely to take a few moments to talk about one of your activities. Rinpoche is the founder of a charity called Lotus Outreach, whose mission is to empower young women and children living in dire poverty through the access to education and thus protecting them from horrors like child slave labour or trafficking and poverty. My name is Jane. I've been the president of Lotus Outreach Australia for a number of years now. The rest of our Lotus Australian board is here: Anna, Shona, Amanda and Madeline on the Lotus Outreach desk, and we also are lucky to have the presence of the Lotus Outreach International Board, or some members thereof, the president, the vice president and a board member, Patty, Penelope and Sarah. I hope to spend now just a very few minutes to briefly introduce you to Lotus Outreach, which is a project that began in India 25 years ago with Rinpoche, and then expanded to Cambodia about 15 years ago, which is when Australia became part of the Lotus Outreach group. Then after that, I hope we'll have a short opportunity to hear from Rinpoche in response to some questions posed by the Sangha members. What could possibly go wrong? Thank you. Of course, part of my motivation in presenting Lotus Outreach Australia to you today is to ask for your support. But as I started to put this little talk together, I became somewhat overwhelmed by the sheer extent of need of support for so many causes, so many situations around the world, starting here at home with the catastrophic bushfires we have, other environmental disasters, war-torn countries, disease, disability, famine, wildlife extinction, ocean rises. The list just goes on and on and on. They're all crying out for our support and help. So how do we choose where to start? Which charity should we support? When we started Lotus Outreach Australia, a number of us researched all the ways that we could best impact poverty and all that comes with poverty, including the horror of child slavery and trafficking. We always came back to the same place: educate girls. By now you will have heard this mantra on everyone's lips, from the World Bank to Michelle Obama to the UN. Sorry, but you're jumping ahead up there. Thank you. And perhaps most pertinently at the moment, a recent analysis has also shown us that climate change action will benefit enormously from educating girls. So instead of us reacting to disaster upon disaster, urgent appeal upon urgent appeal, we believe that one way that we can make our donations go further and lead to real sustainable change in communities and eventually governments is to educate girls. Next slide, please. Rinpoche has recently written about Lotus Outreach. You can read the full text on the website. He says that we should rejoice at the remarkable effect the work that Lotus Outreach has achieved. And indeed, we do. Next slide, please. Thank you. So Lotus Outreach Australia provides full scholarships to between 100 to 150 girls each year for girls in school between year 7 and 12 in a program called the GATE program, which stands for Girls Access to Education. Nearly 100 of these girls have now completed a full education through to year 12. This is how the GATE program works. Next click, please. Thank you. We start by providing the basics: uniforms, shoes, school supplies. Next. Tuition costs and fees are paid to the teachers. A bike is provided for getting to school safely. Rice for the family is provided so that the girl won't be pulled out to work. These last two aspects are provided by LOCAM, which is the Lotus Outreach Cambodia office. Our country partner does home visits and monitors school progress and school attendance and ensures that the girl has her family's support so she won't be pulled out of school. Lotus Outreach commits to support each girl through to the end of year 12. Finally, ongoing vocational support is then provided through the Catalyst program after graduation. Here are some of the wonderful faces of girls who have passed their final exams, looking rightfully proud. We have hundreds of heartwarming stories from the Gate Girls, and I'm just going to share one of them. Sovanita is our youngest scholarship student at the moment, having just finished year 8, where she ranked 3rd in her class. She comes from a large family with 7 children, and both her parents are vegetable farmers, so you can imagine that resources are meagre and stretched, very thin. Lotus Outreach Australia has been working with this family for a number of years. Sovanita's eldest sister graduated from year 12 recently, and Sovanita then took her place in our program. And despite the many hardships that this family have suffered, having the continuous program through the GATE scholarship program, they've never for a moment considered pulling their girls out of school. Sovanita tells us about her dreams for a future. We currently have about 50 sponsors who contribute $35 a month to support the girls in our GATE program, but we do need 50 more. If any of you feel like you would like to become involved, we've got plenty of sponsorship information at the desk in the foyer. We now have a few minutes where we can hear Rinpoche talk a little bit about Lotus Outreach. We did ask the Sangha, the next slide please, for some questions, which Rinpoche might choose to address or not. And about 24 questions we had, and they boiled down to these sorts of categories that we've got on the slide there. Maybe I could start the ball rolling, because I feel such immense gratitude, as I'm sure we all do, for the teachings. And so making offerings to Rinpoche is something that came up in the questions. So we all know that the very best offering we can make to our teachers is to put the Dharma into practice and possibly even reach enlightenment, although I think I have to use another word for that, now, don't I, Rinpoche? But while we're still operating in the relative world, some of us would like to make material offerings as well. This is what you have said about this, Rinpoche, I think in response to receiving a gift of your 26th coffee machine. You said, when you make gifts to the Khensi Foundation, 84,000, Lotus Outreach or Siddhartha's intent, you are not only helping fulfill my wishes and aspirations, but you know your money is being really well spent. So maybe you would like to say a little bit more about how such an offering to Lotus Outreach might fulfill your wishes and aspirations. And then maybe while we're on that topic, we could also look at the idea about supporting charity as a way to gain merit, since this is a concept that is quite strong in some Asian cultures.
Just very briefly, well, as Jane explained, Lotus Outreach was it was first started in India. But Lotus Outreach became really important for me. And I have to give that credit to this girl that I was holding, the small girl in the picture that you saw earlier. I went to Cambodia several years ago. This is a long time ago, actually. I went there to partially for tourism. I wanted to see Angkor Wat, because I've always been intrigued by this sort of, Hinduism, and then slowly ending up to Buddhism, and then there's also that tantric element. So anyway, during my trip there, I went to an orphanage where I was told that many of the girls get sold in Cambodia as prostitutes. So I went to this center where all these young girls are kept. And this particular girl held my finger and she wouldn't let me go. like so tight, really, really tight. And she wouldn't let me go. And then, I don't know, I had this really strong feeling, connection, so to speak. So I immediately asked the orphanage that I really want to support this girl, all the way, through her universities, whatever. But sadly, in about a few years' time, I lost her. Because, Cambodia, correspondence, the connections, and who knows what happened, all the people there. So sometimes I think about this, but what must have happened to her? That sometimes I wish that she's in good hand, but sometimes terrible kind of terrible image or I don't know, ideas also comes in my mind. So actually she, who is, I think, partially a little bit blind. Yeah. So anyway, I have to really give credit to her, the strength to have the Lotus Outreach in Cambodia really is because of her. Now, in Buddhism, especially in Mahayana Buddhism, we talk about accumulation of merit, by doing good deeds. And when we talk about accumulation of merit, we talk about two fields of merit. This is important. As a Buddhist, we know this. Because the Buddhists have this idea that Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are field of merit, meaning to whom you pay veneration, offerings, and then you accumulate merit. But actually in the sutras, there are two equally important merit. There's another one that's equally important as the Buddha field or the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and that is sentient beings. In fact, someone like Shantideva would say the second one is even more important, because according to Shantideva, he said, these beings are property, or they are the children of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. By making them happy, you are making the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas happy. I think you may have read this in the Shantideva's Bodhicharya Avatara. So, the offering, veneration, respect, assistance, facilitating the sentient beings, and especially those who have immediate needs, and especially sort of in a worldly sense, enlightening them with education, information, skill is utmost important. And not only important, as a Buddhist, I consider this as a very powerful and a special way to accumulate merit.
So as a mother and having a daughter with so much opportunity to education, I just wondered why sometimes culturally in traditions that girls have not had the same opportunities or haven't been able to aspire to be great leaders, and if you think that will change in the coming years throughout the entire world, just not in the Western world, that girls will step up to be able to have more positions of influence.
I hope so. I really think, I hope so. Sometimes I see, hope. I see that this is happening sometimes. Other times, I feel the world is so unfair to this gender, still very continuously unfair, and the unfairness is becoming even more sophisticated, and it's becoming more, hidden. And sometimes it is a little disheartening. But other times there's also a very pleasant surprise, pleasant surprise. And sometimes it comes from the most unexpected place. Like India, for instance. They are the one who produced non-duality. They are the one who talks about this wisdom and all, so on and so on. But when it comes to the respect and appreciation and, sacred outlook towards women, I think they are not doing good, I feel. Then, you go to places like China, okay, they talk about communism and all of that, but, the gender, especially in the cities, it's really good. Sometimes, this is a joke, by the way. I sometimes even tell my Chinese friends, the ladies, in a few years' time, men might need Me Too movement. It's like really, really strong and so surprising. But as I said, it's a very mixed feeling I have. I hope, I pray that, as a Buddhist, feminine is always considered as one that is to be sought after. Actually, I should have said this. Like the wisdom, the prajna, the wisdom, the shunyata is always symbolized by feminine. Mm-hmm. Like the prajna paramita is often nicknamed as mother. Mother. So it's as a Buddhist, I have that hope and prayer, but I have to say, many times I have mixed feeling that it's not really moving fast enough, or it's moving, but it's becoming very sophisticated.
So as a female Sangha, you'd hope that we'd be a bit more courageous to sort of step up and kind of, like, yes. I saw Tenzin Palmo not long ago.
You should be very courageous and you should be very skillful, I think.
And something that stood out for me that Tenzin Palmo said at a talk recently was that you can kind of be a rabbit or you can be a tiger. And symbolically, I thought that was quite a strong image.
Yes, very much. Okay. Okay, one more? Yeah.
Jay, and may I share? I went to Cambodia to visit 2 homes of these children, and I'd like to share one of the homes that I visited, please, if that's okay with you. So, I went into one of the homes that was behind a temple, and she had 3 girls. They were all living in a very small room, and rainy season was coming, and their floorboards had holes and spaces in between. She told me that what happens is snakes come up when it starts raining. But they were very grateful because they had a sack of rice, had a bicycle. One of the girls went to school, and this girl wrote to me until she then graduated, and they were very, very beautiful. She didn't have a husband. Neither of the homes had a husband. The women worked. And I thought, for $35, I think we spend that on coffee in 10 days. So I'm very happy to be in touch with this, thanks to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rinpoche. We'll do our very best to keep supporting your activities.